Know this about the basics of a stable mind. Today I'm addressing the topic of mental health. I've been a clinical psychologist for 8 years and this is what I know. Today I want to talk about why you should work on having a stable mind first and how this enhances your chances of efficient therapy. You might have watched one of my videos on the basics and heard me talk about why I count these as the primary things to start with when addressing mental health. If not, then here's a quick summary. I find that in order to stabilize our mind, we need to have the 4 basics in order. We need to have enough sleep, eat enough, rest enough, and do enough. These are the foundation of a stable mind and thus mental health. It would not surprise me if you've been thinking that this is difficult and maybe you think that you'd rather start with actual therapy. You might be thinking, yeah, but what about the stuff that happened to destabilize my mind, or what about my actual problems? Isn't that what made me suffer in the first place? And if I got some help with that, then everything would be fine? My short answer would be no. Not in my shop. But in order to keep you wanting to talk to me, I would probably end up saying something like this. My answer to your question of if we can just skip the basics and go right into actual therapy would be, I wish that was possible. As feeling fine would likely help you better manage what your body needs. But that in my job as a psychologist, I also have to advise you on what's possible and to help you in the most efficient way to mend your mental health. Working with you having an unstable mind due to all of the basics being out of order is a tough ask, both of me as a psychologist, but especially of yourself. I would find it unethically to advise you to do something that I think is impossible and to guide you in a way that's too hard. I believe that engaging in therapy is hard. It requires you to understand new concepts, take in and understand how you work, and analyze what works and doesn't work, and find out what can make the difference in changing what needs to be changed. This is not and will never be an easy task. I also know that if I ask too much or set too difficult challenges for a client, that they're likely to not succeed, and that they end up giving up on therapy and feeling helpless or hopeless. As a stable mind is the foundation of being able to make decisions, do what you need to do, and function overall, starting with stabilizing the mind is likely the most relevant first step. Or put it in a different way. If one of my clients is stressed out of their mind, running around and doing things constantly, I won't expect their mind to be able to engage in new knowledge, or that they currently hold the mental flexibility needed for therapy that has an effect on them. I've seen it many times and I find that it simply doesn't work, and that the client end up wasting their time and money spent on therapy and the best outcome, or that they end up feeling worse than before therapy. Bad therapy is in my mind worse than no therapy at all. Another example is if my client tells me that they're not eating sufficiently due to a diet that they've started. I'll be able to tell that they're struggling due to insufficient food intake and how their lack of sustenance of their body negatively impacts their emotions and thinking. I'll also here talk to the client about sufficient eating as a basics of stabilizing the mind, and that I don't see how they'll be able to engage efficiently if they're not eating enough. I'll let them know that not having the basics in order will make their mind unstable and make it very difficult for them to profit from therapy. Sometimes the client thinks I'm an idiot and tells me that they won't change their eating behavior or eat enough. It happens very rarely, but I've made a video that's coming up on this in my playlist if you're interested. Usually, I'm able to come to terms with my client and they allow me to help them. Sometimes this requires that I tell my client a bit about what therapy is and what therapy can do. I don't expect my client to know anything about what therapy can do before coming to my clinic. Or I expect them to do what normal humans do, which is to ask for help with what they would like to achieve. In my practice, I often get asked to help a client to feel good or feel happy. It's then my role to explain to them that what we work on in therapy is more to remove something that's minimizing their chances of feeling good or happy. That we can reach the goal by removing obstacles or doing something about what's causing them to feel bad or unhappy. Sometimes I'll also let them know that feeling good or happy all the time is not possible, as this is not how people are meant to feel. But that we sometimes feel good and happy when something nice happens, and that the goal otherwise is to feel closer to neutral. That is, to feel not utterly horrible or in distress. Usually my client will tell me that this is what they mean. We can then agree on what our goal for the work will do is to help them zero out, as I sometimes call it, to help them feel neutral. Many hold the belief that we can fix negative moods or distress by working on adding positives, just like math, where pluses will cancel out the minuses. In psychology, it just doesn't work like that. In psychology, or for people, it's usually something different that pulls us down than what lifts us up, mood-wise or mental health-wise. This is where my phrase zeroing out comes from. That first we need to work on what's causing them to be in minus, and then when they're in zero because we reduce some of the minuses, then we can have a talk about what they could add to their life, such as the pluses, leading to feeling good or happy. With this understanding, I'll let the client know that I believe that in order for them to be able to work in therapy or in life's challenges, that they need a certain level of being stable or neutral. That way, working on the basics is a part of therapy, as it can help them improve their mental health, and that achieving better mental health or mind stability is very useful, if not critical, for them to be able to engage in further therapy, changing more complicated stuff. I'll let them know that doing the basics is therefore most often the first step when working on improving mental health. Having spoken about the basics as a basis for efficient therapy, I also want to address another reason for why I stand so strongly on this. I care a lot about helping my clients and seeing them succeed. I know we in these modern times exist in a culture where hard work is not questioned and that working hard is the go-to and should be praised. Knowing that I don't hold any power over that or hold any ability to change the culture we live in, I still want to help. When I get asked to just start with therapy and in essence, just ignore how they feel and get to it, then I often get reminded of this culture and try to understand the client in this context. I might hear from a client that they're okay with that therapy is hard and that they're willing to just push through and pull themselves together and work hard irrespective of how weak they might seem to me. I hold the belief that self-pressure this way, to just ignore ourselves and push through with our agenda, is a matter that I should try and take care of if the client will let me. I'll often let the client know that even if it was possible to just skip the basics and proceed with therapy, in their understanding of what that means, that I think it sounds too hard for them, and that this is maybe not a nice way to treat themselves. I'll talk to them about the concept of working smarter, not harder, and that by addressing the basics first, they're likely to feel that what they need to do in therapy afterwards will be a lot easier. Therapy is never easy, and I'm a dedicated mind trainer, and I'll do my best to support my clients in good results. Therefore, therapy is often quite hard. If I should help a client improve what they would like to improve, I always start with trying to make it easier for them. I'll explain to them that I think it's a good idea to allow some efforts into making it easier for them, and that I think it makes sense for many reasons. Other than the side effect of it improving their self-worth to allow themselves to engage in less self-pressure, then it also makes the therapy more likely to succeed or less likely to fail. Failed therapy or inefficient therapy often is due to the client not being able to do what's needed. Of course, failed therapy could also be because the psychologist not being good enough in their analysis or communication or something along the line of the fault of the psychologist. In that case, fire the psychologist and try again with someone else. But failed therapy can also be due to the client not being able to succeed with the demands presented to them in therapy. One major cause of not having the ability to meet the often high demands in therapy can be that the client is not well enough mentally. And not having the basics in order is a clear cause for mental distress. Having an unstable mind is not a good fundament to build on. Therapy is hard. It just is. Focusing on the basics first make you better equipped to take on the needed challenges of therapy, and it makes it easier. I think this was all we had time for. What was your takeaway from today's video? As always, feel free to take away the information you can use, if any, and leave the rest. Hopefully you found that today's topic made sense and I didn't waste your time. Please subscribe or like this video so my channel can grow. Take care and see you for the next one.